Alright guys, in our last couple lessons we started talking about slope. So in section 4, we're going to incorporate that slope idea into an equation. So we're going to talk about direct variation, where a direct variation is a relationship in which the ratio of y to x is a constant m, which we know is our slope. We say y varies directly with x. So symbol-wise, we have y divided by x equals m, or y equals mx, where m cannot be 0. So we can't have a 0 slope. An example you would see there is y equals 2x, and then some non-examples is y equals 4x plus 6, or y equals x minus 12, because we are adding or subtracting. In order for them to vary directly, we cannot add or subtract. It has to just be y equals mx. That's a very important equation. We struggled a little bit in the past with writing the equation, so remember y equals mx. And just for your reference, you might see y equals kx sometimes. Just know that they mean the same thing, whether it's m or k. Okay, so down at the bottom here, when the ratio of two variable quantities is constant, the relationship is a direct variation. So there's your vocab for you. Since 0, 0 is a solution of y equals mx, the graph of a direct variation always passes through the origin and represents a proportional linear relationship. In the equation y equals mx, m is called the constant of variation, so another vocab word for you, or constant of proportionality. It is the slope of the graph of y equals mx. So earlier this year we talked about how to tell if a graph was proportional. So when we're talking about direct variation, we're basically looking at the same thing. It needs to be a straight line, and it needs to be through the origin, which tells us that there is a constant. If we look at our first example, the graph shows the cost of different amounts of trail mix. Determine if the relationship between the cost and the weight of the trail mix is a direct variation. So determine if the relationship is a direct variation. Find the cost y divided by the weight x for points on the graph. So you can pick any point. We'll see some of them are kind of darkened in here. So we're going to use those. You always want to pick more than 2, so 3 would be a good start. So if we look at our first example, we have $14 when we have 4 pounds of trail mix. So that's over to 4, up to 14. Notice we're not moving by 1 this time. And 14 divided by 4 would give us $3.50 per pound. We look at our next point. So looking there, so we're over 8, up 28. So that gives us a y value of $28, an x value of 8 pounds. 28 divided by 8 still gives us $3.50 per pound. And last, look at our third example. We're up at 42. We moved over 12, so that's $42 over 12 pounds. Again, divide them. Just make a note of that. So 42 divided by 12 again gives us $3.50 per pound. So yes, it is proportional. And just to go through our checklist, first thing we check, is it going through the origin? Yes. Second thing we check, is it straight? Well, we can look. Yes, it's straight. So check there. And third, do we have a constant? Well, we just saw 350, 350, 350. So yes, there is a constant, and our constant is $3.50 per pound. When we're talking about that constant of variation, we want to make sure we label it. Okay, jump into our next example, example 3. The time it takes to burn amounts of information on a CD varies directly with the amount of information. Write and solve an equation to find how long it will take to fill a 700 megabyte CD. So given this graph, step 1, we want to use the equation y equals mx And we want to choose any point on the graph, then solve for m. So we could choose 2.5, 10, 3.75, 15, 10, 40, or 25, 100. Personally, I'm going to go with the 25, 100, but you could pick any of them. You're told that it's constant, so they should all give you the same rate. So I have 25, 100 as my point. I'm going to label that x and y. So if I'm using y equals mx, I know that y is 100. I'm looking for m. Times, I know that x is 25. So if we go back to last chapter, we would solve for m by dividing by 25. So we get m equals 4. Just as a side note, we also could have used that m equals y over x, which would give us 100 over 25, which still equals 4. Either way, we get that m equals 4. Okay, step 2. We want to use m to write an equation. Our original form was y equals mx. Now, when you write your equation, you do not want to substitute in for y or for x. You are only substituting in to your m. We know that m equals 4. So our equation would be y equals 4x. This is a very simple step, but also very commonly missed. We always go back to that y equals mx or y equals kx. Once you know what your constant is, substitute it in, there's your equation. So y equals 4x. And then step 4, find how long it would take to fill the CD. If we go back to the top, we want a 700 megabyte CD. We have our equation, y equals 4x. And I have to decide, is that 700 megabytes representing my x or my y? Well, if I go back to my graph, I see on my x-axis, we have megabytes, y-axis is time, so my megabytes would be my x value. So y equals 4 times 700. 4 times 700 gives us 2,800. So that tells us it would take 2,800 seconds to fill a 700 megabyte CD. Okay, one more example for this lesson. Comparing direct variations. The equation y equals 1.5x represents the relationship between the number of heartbeats y and the time in seconds x for a dog. The graph shows the heartbeats for a cat. Which animal has a faster heart rate? And make sure you explain. So if I start with my dog, we have y equals 1.5x. Well, if we're talking about comparing our heartbeats per second, so heartbeats per second would be our y over x. That is your slope. So the dog beats 1.5 heartbeats per second. Okay, so the dog was easy because you're given the equation. You just have to pick out what your constant of variation was. Right, if we look at our cat, to find our constant, so m equals y divided by x. You could also do y equals mx, but you're going to end up with m equals y divided by x anyways. So you can pick any two of these points. We want to make sure that we actually do have a constant and that we don't make any mistakes. So if I'm looking at 1, 2, I'll circle that one in blue. So m equals, my y value is 2, my x value is 1. So m equals 2. And we have 2, 4. So m equals 4 over 2, which gives us m equals 2. And then if we keep going, just to be certain, our 3, 6, which again gives me m equals 2. And last but not least, for 8, m equals 8 divided by 4. So m still equals 2. So for our cat, we have 2 beats per second. Okay, so now our final answer, I'm going to draw a quick little box in here for our answer. So the cat beats 2 per second. Which is faster than the dog at 1.5 beats per second. So we have our answer, the cat is faster, and our explanation, the cat is 2 beats per second, which is faster than the dog at 1.5 beats per second. Not an overly involved explanation, just something showing where you came up with that answer. Right, that is the end of lesson 4.